What up, y'all? This is Jeff. I'm here with one of my amazing past students. Maybe I can ask you to say your name. Um,
Uh, yeah, hi everyone. My name is Nick. I was a student at Jeff's class in winter of 2021, and recently I graduated from Berkeley, and now I work as a software engineer in San Diego.
awesome. And I think, what was your major in Berkeley?
My major in Berkeley was applied mathematics with a concentration in data science.
And you graduated from UC Berkeley, what semester?
Spring 2023, so 1 year
Okay,
ago.
awesome. Congratulations. Yeah, Nick.
Hmm.
Um,
Thank you, thank you.
uh, so this interview came up because I got contacted as a reference for some of the work that you were doing. You're applying to jobs and stuff like
Hmm.
this. And I had a chance to talk with you, and I was really pleasantly surprised by some of the things that you said. And I don't know if you wanted to just share a little bit about the class that we took together was
Hmm. It
which
was a linear algebra math 2B, I believe.
awesome. And I would ask maybe we start the conversation just what do you remember about that class? I guess like what did you do? How did it
Hmm.
work?
Hmm. So the main two things that I remember from this class, which I believe puts it pretty much above every other class I've taken in my entire undergraduate, would be the LANA project, which was the circuits, the ones that include batteries, and we had to have like an Excel document to do like basic matrix stuff to like I guess represent the model that we are building in real life. And the other part, which I really loved, was we had to document our journey learning linear algebra instead of the traditional exams and homework that have a due date and like everybody's familiar with. And I just thought that those two things separated this class and they were both done really well.
You did that, by the way. I like to say that when my students thrive, it's because you're a genius, and when you struggle, it's because I suck as a teacher. So I really appreciate that chance to work with you. I might ask for you to talk a little bit about. I don't remember the words you used, but I was surprised by this, right? Because the dominant narrative in the world around us, when folks say the education you get at Foothill versus the education you get at Berkeley, what would the dominant narrative be?
Uh, you don't go to Berkeley for education, you go there for connections. But Foothill is where you really like learn and get feedback, valuable feedback. Because
Yeah, I think
I've said it many times. Oh, yeah.
go
In
go.
Berkeley, you do not get any feedback for any work that you do unless you really hunt down the professor or whoever is managing the class. At Foothill, getting feedback from the instructor or the professor is the default. And if you want more, they're free almost any time to help you out.
Yeah, so that I would say that's not the dominant narrative. Most people, when I got my PhD, someone once said to me, "You're going to be a community college teacher? What a waste of a PhD." UC Berkeley and institutions like UC Berkeley are really invested in the idea and selling the idea that the best institutions of teaching and learning are UCs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they can convince you, if they can convince the population that the best way to get an education is to go to the UC, then people are willing to pay $30,000 a year and apply all these crazy things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would ask you in this moment, can you speak to that at all? Having been both at Foothill College and at the UCs, you spoke to it a little bit just now, but one at this moment, what we're doing is giving you a chance to reflect. I don't often have my students have a chance to hear. Foothill students are 2 year cycles, basically. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
seldom that one of my 2 year students at Foothills gets to hear the voice of a UC Berkeley graduate, right? Somebody that has sampled both Foothill and Berkeley and being able to compare. So um, I think you mentioned a little bit about, I would love to hear a little bit about that project you did, the open, what was it? The
Open
open,
project at Berkeley.
yeah. And, you know, if you want to talk a little bit about that, but then also some of the experiences that you had with professors at Berkeley and reflect on that relationship between what you experienced there and what you experienced at Foothill. So maybe we'll start with that open projects, what that project was, what did you
Yeah.
do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in my last year at Berkeley, I was interested in doing computer science projects, and the situation was in Berkeley, if you did not get into a computer science like organization, and in your freshman or sophomore year, it's really hard to get in because they want people who will be invested in that club for the entire time they're there. Because I came in as a transfer, the odds were against me. And in my last year with a few other friends, we made an organization that would be able to accept anybody who is interested in computer science projects. And we would accommodate everybody and make sure that it is well run because all of the other student orgs, they would accept maybe like 20, 30 people a year. In our first semester, we did 250 people or somewhere around that number. And at, and every single group had maybe like 5 to 7 people. They were working on their projects by themselves. We were just giving them a little guidance and also rewarding them by like doing a good job. And even after I left, the club is still going strong, and I think they've even improved on like all of the mistakes that we made in the first semesters.
Yeah, I think actually the two of us, you said it was Open Projects Berkeley, and then
Yeah.
here it is. And then
Mhm.
I was really excited because I'm in the room with someone famous, actually.
Uh, yeah, one
Yay!
of the alumni. Mhm.
Yeah, cool. Um, and so one of the things that you were doing with this project is really making sure I hear I am deeply aligned with your values. What you're talking about is anti-democracy versus democracy. Anti-democracy says that only some people are part of the in crowd. Democracy says that we have an open space for all people. And what you were saying is that the way that UC Berkeley was running was to be exclusive. And you decided that I don't want to be exclusive. I actually want to create a platform by which we include other people. And then you spent a lot of time making that happen.
Yeah, so yeah, I just don't understand. I mean, I do understand their reason for being exclusive. They really want people who will be invested in the org for many years to come. But that really discriminates against people I mean, who are either transfer students or maybe got into computer science very late. I got it. I was initially a business major for my first 2 years, and when I was transferring out of Foothill, I was still a business major until like the last semester where I decided, you know what, I think computer science is really what I want to do. For some, like getting this late into this like computer science, if I didn't make the org, I would have zero experience working in like any group projects outside of the few classes that I took. And I mean, hearing the good stuff from all of the people we worked with, I think we did a really good job.
Yeah, it sounds like you did an amazing job. It sounds like that work changed lives.
Well, I hope so. But
It
every
changed.
once in a while, I do. Yeah, every once in a while I do pop into the club meetings and they're like, "Oh my God, look, it's the co-founder," and like, and so I ask how everybody's doing. They're like, "Oh, we're like making this," and I'm like, "Good stuff." And that I can only imagine that maybe in the next few semesters they finally start getting involved with actual companies who might be looking to outsource the projects because that is the one thing that I guess our organization specifically is lacking. But that's because we've just started, so it's only been a year and a half. Given a few more semesters, I think we will be up to par with all of the other clubs, maybe even ahead of them, because we just have so much manpower at our disposal, if you can call it that.
Yeah, big time. And companies always love to outsource to get free labor. That's something that any company will accept,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, but the
And
students need the experience. That's the most
yeah,
important thing right now.
yeah, most definitely. From your standpoint, I agree with that. I want to call out the idea that we should invest in young people. And I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I love you're finding a niche for yourself. So I love that. I love the creativity. I might ask a little bit about the experience. What did you notice about the priorities of UC Berkeley professors, and how did you feel about that as a student? Right?
Mm-hmm. Uh, I mean, I don't even know if the professors at UC Berkeley can even be called teachers at all, because in my entire 2 years, the only thing those professors did was just give a lecture, which would be just reading off the textbook, pretty much word for word, maybe a slides if they're being very creative. But most of the learning is done by myself. And like, I don't know, in my last semester, I don't think I even met my stats professor because the lectures were published online and they were just word for the textbook. So I saw no reason to go to lectures. And during exams, he wasn't even there to like manage like the exam room. So I went the entire semester and I don't even know what my stats professor looks like. They're just focused on their research and just handing it off to the master's PhD students who are studying the material.
Yeah, and you want to talk a little bit about grading, who grades your work. I think you said it earlier, but I think it's an important
Oh,
conversation.
it's 100% students. Like unless there are a few minor exceptions, but I don't think those were even those might not even have been math classes where the my work was graded by professors. Or like only those classes, the professors maybe looked at my work, but even though I'm very skeptical because whenever I talk to the graduate students who are like their TAs, it seems like they were being overworked. They're saying that, oh my God, I have so many papers to grade. Meanwhile, the professor is just, I don't even know what the professor is doing with their time. It seems like I don't even know what their what their main focus is
research
right now.
research is very time consuming, and a lot of these professors are also competing for multi-million or hundreds of thousands of dollars of
Mm-hmm.
grants, and they're traveling around the nation. This is a I have a lot to say about this structure. We talked about this earlier. The traditional hierarchy that we impose, this relates to the Carnegie Mellon classification for universities. And the idea is that you have R1 institutions, which are research one, Berkeley's a research one, Davis a research one, et cetera. And then you've got PUIs, primarily undergraduate institutions. So on the top of that hierarchy is
Mm-hmm.
research one, then primarily undergraduate institutions and liberal arts colleges. And then at the bottom is the community colleges. But that hierarchy is really a hierarchy with the amount of research money that's coming into that school. So the really, I find this to be kind of like a Ponzi scheme, because what happens is schools like Berkeley collect thousands of dollars of tuition from students, but then they don't deliver what they promised that they were going to deliver. They're not delivering a fantastic education. They're delivering lectures 1 hour a day, 3 days a week. And then they take all that money that the students give, and the professors use that money to fund other stuff like research. And that research actually gets published in peer-reviewed journals that have um, paywalls on them. So the professors get that on their resume. They get to fly to national conferences. They get grants. So from the standpoint of Berkeley, there's no cost there. Berkeley gets all the tuition, and oh yeah, they also get all the grant money, and they get their scholars on the radio, and they get banners on the side of buses, and they get in movies like Ant-Man. There's actually right. But the issue
I
is
never watched the movie. I would have.
you don't waste your time. I have young kids, and we like to watch an action movie together. But my point, the reason that I want to highlight this is what did that feel like as a student to be paying a lot of money and to have professors that were not at all invested in your education?
I mean, it really felt like I'm paying $30,000 with the intent of just meeting friends because education is just I'm doing it on my own.
Yeah, and I would translate that. The reason this is so important is because I have another hierarchy. So I call this the income inequality entrenched hierarchy. So if we as a society are really, really invested in maintaining income inequality, then the best places we can go to are places like UC Berkeley and Stanford and MIT, because those places depend on the current hierarchy. So a lot of people though misrepresent. They think that income inequality entrenched hierarchy is equal to the teaching and learning hierarchy. But I want to counter propose that if you care about getting great teaching and learning experiences and really developing yourself as a student, the premier institutions for teaching and learning are community colleges, the best
Mhm.
places in the nation. And I love to say this, I'm going to ask you this again on camera. What do we call a student that gets a better educational experience for less money?
Smart.
Yeah, those are community college students. And so I might just say, can you compare out loud when you went to UC Berkeley? Think back to your professors at Foothill. What were your experiences in that space? Foothill is a community
Mhm.
college, California Community
Mhm.
College, and in Los Altos, California, just for reference.
Yeah. Of course. So Foothill, pretty much every single class I took, all of my work, homework, exams, projects, they were graded by the instructor with advice on how to improve. In my entire time in Berkeley, I would only get a number from a student instructor who was busy grading like 300 papers in like a span of a few weeks. If I got something wrong, I wouldn't know why. I would have to figure that on my own unless I hunted down the professor and really asked them, "Hey, how do I do this correctly?"
Yeah, and that's such a big deal. I love that. I'm excited for you that you had that experience. I'm sad. I'm sad that you had to pay for a less good quality education.
Mhm.
But I'm happy that you experienced what it meant to get really good feedback. I would ask you to speak a little bit about having seen the Lana project. If you could just speak about what that was like and what it felt like, and what came up for you as you were working on that. I remember you mentioned that it was like kind of astounding, like it took you by surprise, right?
Yeah, because when I think about like all of the math classes I've ever took, university, college, high school, middle school, all of them have been the standard. Here's the textbook, homework due every week, and exams every once in a while. And then to suddenly just get a project that is like kind of leaning towards electrical engineering, and then we actually do use the stuff that we are learning in class and apply it to the project. That just seemed like it just came out of nowhere. I was not expecting it, and that is the one thing I remember most from like my entire time studying that. So all of the classes I took in Berkeley, honestly, I forgot like pretty much everything that I did in class. I probably did homework, took exams, but like this particular project, I will always remember it because it was just so different, but I felt like it was actually it solidified my knowledge of linear algebra.
Yeah, I would ask you to talk through that just a little bit. Like, what do you mean by that? What is it? What do you mean that it has solidified your knowledge? What it kind of articulate a little bit just for folks that might
Yeah.
not understand what you mean.
Mhm. Yeah, of course. So for let's take the Berkeley classes for example. Let's take if I were to take linear algebra in Berkeley, I would have a textbook, I would have homework. As soon as I'm done with the homework, some of the knowledge escapes, and then when I have to take the exam, I have to quickly relearn it, put it onto the exam, and then it immediately goes away because my intent the entire time was just to get a good enough grade to pass the class. Because I mean, I was not applying the knowledge to anything else. I was just trying to solve the problem that the professor would throw at us. For this project, this was um, all right. This project was like a complement to the learning we were already doing. So the way the class was structured is that we would be studying the linear algebra concepts using the books or using the videos that you published as well as to other content, and we would document our learning and try to understand it by ourselves, and you would always be available to answer questions. And because there is no exam, I mean, in theory, you could just, I mean, you just, if you didn't want to, you couldn't, I mean, you could just not care about it. But for those people who actually wanted to, they had like all the freedom to like learn the material without the stress or like with the intent of just passing the exam. And then when there's a project assigned to you and you actually get to use the knowledge that you've been studying and apply it to something else, you have it just the more you use it for something that is not like solving homework problems and exams, I think that solidifies it. Sorry, I went a little bit over the place.
You're
I
doing
don't know if
great.
my wording was a
You're
little
doing great.
confusing.
You're doing absolutely wonderful. You did fantastic. And I would say one of my practices, just to put this theory to rest, I meet with every single one of my students individually. It is very hard to get through my class by faking it. I usually get to see this immediately, and I have a bunch of ways to tap into student motivation, which are not threatening students with low grades. This is another project that I do called Ungrading. So I do want to highlight the idea that Nick, in your case, when you were learning, were you faking it or were you deeply engaged for your own purposes?
No, I was learning.
Yeah. So, I just asked you to speak for yourself. Each of my students is their own life, and I am good at what I do. I'm a professional educator. I'm an expert educator. I actually know what it means to educate students. And there are a bunch of things that I do to make sure that students don't just perform learning. In fact, if you give me a hardworking student, I would put my hardworking student against the best UC Berkeley students, and I bet money that if I coach that student well, they will outperform those students. I don't like, what I really want my students to do is hug UC Berkeley students and help them heal, because it must feel really bad to be swindled like that. But the reality of the situation is, I tend to look at community college students as the best in the nation because they're getting better educational experiences for cheaper. And my job is to coach them. That's what I do for a profession, right? Um, yeah, I thank you so much for sharing that. I guess the last thing that I would ask you to share, and then we can kind of wrap up, was a little bit about your experience in your final year, what it was like to finish your degree and then go on to the job market, and just give a little bit of advice as you know when the people that I work with are in their second year, thinking about transferring, thinking that community college is the training ground and they're going to go get the real stuff, but they're not really thinking about what it means to transition from a college degree into their job. And so I wonder if you can just speak a little bit about experience, since you just finished it, right? You just got your first job.
Yes, I did.
Yay.
Yeah. So I guess if I had to give some advice about my experience, specifically in my case, my interest was computer science, but I did do applied mathematics, which let me do some of the computer science that I did want. But 100% of what I'm doing for work, I did not learn in school at all. I could just skip Berkeley and I would still be the same person at the job. I have all the skills. I learned them on my own. Berkeley was just a place where I met other people who were very good at what they do, and just like the org, we got all these smart people together and we made something that helped a lot of others. That's probably the thing I will remember Berkeley for, not the classes I took or the professors that I worked with, because my interests were in doing other things.
Yeah, and can I ask you how you became competitive? Did you when you applied, did you immediately get hits, or did it take a little bit of time? And what did you do to build a resume that allowed you to eventually get the job that you were looking for?
Yeah, well, in my case, it took me a year after graduating. So unfortunately, I did not have any internships. I felt like I needed to study up on classes. So I even took a summer class. But what really gave me this opportunity, this job, is because over the year that I was hunting for jobs, I was doing side projects. I did so many different I built mobile apps, I built websites, I did all of these things that is pretty much what I would be doing at work anyway. And I think that is what finally attracted the HR department to be like, you know what, let's give this person a chance because I think they have the skills to actually do the job.
Congratulations. God, that feels good. You got your
Mhm.
degree, which they can never take away.
Mhm.
It's yours forever, right?
I mean, to me,
God.
again, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah, I want to. One thing that I would push back against from for my students, I actually agree with you completely from the standpoint of the system. Our colleges do not do what we say they do. In fact, I find the
Mhm.
system to be really harmful. And one of the reasons I became a college teacher is to change this. I think our young people deserve the best that we can give, and we are not giving that whatsoever. But the good news is when you got really smart young people who are willing to work hard like you can get through without being pushed out. I think there are many, many more people who try to get through and get pushed out and never have these type of outcomes. So those are folks that I think a lot about. But um, I love this idea that you took things into your own hands and you found ways to fill the gap between the skills gap, basically between what Berkeley said it was going to give you and what you actually got, and that you kept going, right? Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, any last words of wisdom or advice or ideas, either to the students at Foothill or to other teachers who might be thinking about using applied projects in their
Um,
classes?
Any words of wisdom? I think the best time to learn something is when you need it. If you're working on a project and then you suddenly need to learn something, I think that is the perfect time to learn something, and you will always remember it because you actually used it. If you're just learning something just for the sake of passing the class and getting a good grade on an exam, you're not gonna remember it.
Words of wisdom. I feel like we should put that on a nice poster and put it on the wall with your picture on
Mm,
it. Nick, it's been a
sounds
treat
good.
to see you again. Thank you so much for reaching out through the reference process. And I wish you the best of the best. It's been a treat to hear your voice. And I have no doubt if you stay at it and you keep learning, you're going to build some really special things for yourself as well as get paid to do it, which is always exciting, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you, Nick,
you.
for your
I
time.
wish you the
Yeah.
best as well.